Stars, and welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten. Last week was full of, really exciting, wonderful matchups. Three that mattered, two that really didn't. It was more just for final placement. And let's get into those ones first in our matchup recap. So we'll start with our seventh place championship game between Noel and Randy's Donuts versus Tony and Worse Than Trash. I think that everybody was watching this for the bit mostly. Of course, coming into this game, Tony was 3-0 against Noel all time. But leaving this matchup, he has his first loss against the former champion, soon to be former champion, and lost 129.62 to 124.96. Definitely really tough to see that happen for Tony, lose his unbeatable streak against Noel. So let's get into how it happened. First of all, Justin Herbert move over 27.96. That is not good enough, especially when Jalen Hurts comes in and just absolutely demolishes Arizona in fantasy, at least, even though they did end up losing. Getting 37.82 points for Randy's Donuts on 3 touchdowns, passing and 1 on the ground. Very good start for Jalen Hurts, who has been named the starter moving forward in Philadelphia as well. DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins actually did pretty good at the running back position, getting a combined score higher than Jeff Wilson and Alvin Kamara over on Randy's Donuts side. But in the category of wide receivers, it came down to Calvin Ridley having 163-yard, 10-catch touchdown performance for 27.3 points, and Justin Jefferson getting held in check, and Stephon Diggs not getting a touchdown in their 48-19 win over Denver. And then TJ Hawkinson only getting, he had 1 carry and then 2 receptions for 18 yards. But then he did have a fumble, which brought his normally pretty reliable tight end score down to 0.8. And then, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire leaving early with an injury, compared to Noel just having enough folks active in the lineup to make up that difference, including Rodrigo Blankenship, all aboard the Blankenship, getting 11 points to Joey Sly's 10. As I said earlier, that brings Noel to a 1-3 record all time against Tony, but a 1-0 record in postseason against Tony, and still 0-3 in regular season. So maybe that's the new trend line is that Noel can only win against Tony in the postseason. We'll have to see how that holds up when they meet again next year. So that was our 7th place championship win. Let's hop over to our 5th place championship, where we had Brennan and the Spring Chickens up against Josh and Not Trading Lamar. Brennan winning 133.22 to 103.82. Definitely not the finish that Josh wanted. Josh does finish his season on a 3-game losing streak. Unfortunate for him. And then all time against Brennan is Josh is now 3-2 with a postseason win and a postseason loss all time against Brennan. So who knows where that trend line will go. These two seem pretty matched up moving forward into the future. So let's look at how we got here. Number 1, Lamar Jackson is finally playing back up to Lamar Jackson form of last year, but unfortunately it was not good enough to overcome the deficit of playing Ezekiel Elliott when he was inactive. Now, I know this game didn't mean much, so of course it didn't really matter, but it does go down as a loss in the stat book for Josh, and it's definitely on the back of Ezekiel Elliott getting the start in this lineup. That's a 24-point difference between him and Dalvin Cook right there off the bat, which is pretty close to making up the difference overall between these two teams elsewhere. Chris Carson for Brennan, questionable. He only had 7.9 points after hitting 17.3 and 18.5 the weeks leading up to this. He was up against a much tougher Washington defense, but he gets to rest now for the rest of the season, as he will not need to play for Brennan's squad. Hopefully he can come back into better form next year. in the passing game, Jarvis Landry and Robert Woods were both able to outscore their opponents in AJ Brown and Terry McLaurin. McLaurin getting 11 points, finally getting back into double digits after the previous 2 weeks of being held to 2.4 and 3.4 respectively. That's good to see for Terry McLaurin moving forward. He would definitely benefit from Alex Smith being back rather than Dwayne Haskins being in at quarterback. In the tight end position, Gronk didn't do much. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Tampa Bay, so you kind of expect this from time to time. But Hayden Hurst got a touchdown, 10.1 points. It is his first time getting double digits since week 6 in Minnesota. So not a great, not a great year for Hayden Hurst there after a pretty good start. But it doesn't really matter. This game didn't really matter all that much, and Brennan runs away with it. He goes from seed 6 up to finishing in the 5th spot, and Josh goes from a 4 seed to finishing in the 6th spot. So, it was a tough matchup for Josh there, and we'll have to see where these boys can do next year. Now let's get on over into our punishment matchup. This is the one that everybody was watching all the way down to the absolute wire. So let's talk about it. Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench. Finished the season 3-10. The obvious number 10 seed. Thomas barely missing playoffs after losing 4 games in the regular season by a margin of less than 2.55 points. So this one is going to be a real sad one when we see here that Thomas lost by about 0.76 points. That is one of the saddest things I've ever seen. Thomas going for a 6-game losing streak to end the season after starting 5-4. Man, what a terrible collapse for the dog sniffers this year. You really hate to see a good team like this collapse so quickly, starting in week 10 there. So let's get into it here. After this matchup, Lucas and Thomas. Thomas actually has a total record of 5-8 against Lucas now, and being 1-2 in postseason play. Lucas clearly having the dominant edge in these matchups between these two teams. Tom Brady did fine. Drew Brees, I can't believe he got to start anywhere in this league after his business, but he did throw for 3 touchdowns, which did get him 19.36 points to Tom Brady's 23.4. Pretty good comeback for Drew Brees, I guess. He's still not that good anymore. So it's unsurprising to see him already off the roster, despite the fact that Lucas will not have any more games and did not need to make room on the roster for anyone. Devin Singletary finally had a good game, 15.9 points. He actually needed that pretty badly. This is his first time being in double digits since week 4 against Las Vegas, and this week was against Denver. It was a very lopsided victory, though, for sure, for Buffalo against Denver. So it's unsurprising to see them using the running game more. Wayne Gallman, though, for Thomas was the one that really confused me because he had actually pretty good, start to the game against Cleveland. He had 9 carries for 29 yards in the first quarter and a half, and then they just didn't bring him back out onto the field and instead went with, I think it was Alfred Morris, which was a strange switch that nobody was really expecting. He scored only 2.9 points. We were all kind of, back and forth on if Keenan Allen was going to be startable. He looks into the camera on Thursday night and says, don't bench me, speaking to his fantasy owners, but it looks like Thomas definitely should have benched him. Keenan Allen scoring only 2.1 points. And just looking at the bench for Thomas here, it's looking like, even if he had started Mike Williams, he would have had the win there instead. So it's just tough to see Benny Snell not quite getting enough to overcome on Monday Night Football. Brandon Ayuk turned out to be a really good trade from John Brown from Pelicans on a bench. Again, that's Pelicans on a bench. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna put it on Younghoe Koo, the win here, the absolute goat, taking the cake for Pelicans on a bench. Thomas will have to now do a punishment from the approved list of punishments. Um, I don't think that any of us were expecting this. I guess is sort of what I would say. It's just hmm, Lucas didn't have a chance, we thought. But he did. Clearly, he had just enough of a chance, about a 0.76 chance of taking that win there. Thomas Benny Snell made it interesting, but take a look at Rule 5.08 in the Constitution, Thomas, and 5.08A for your punishment choices, where we have the comedy open mic. Run an official 5K event in embarrassing clothes, approved by the league majority with a sign that says I suck at fantasy football. Get a tattoo on your butt. I suggest a heart with all our initials on it. Do an embarrassing calendar shoot, and then make the calendar itself, of course, with important dates for the league. And then there's obviously the buyout option where you can pay everybody's league dues, $500 next year. As of right now, that's the current value. So any of those options, of course, that's great. The punishment must be done by the start of next season, unless given a waiver or extension due to temporary rules like coronavirus. And the punishment date, if there is an event, must be announced 1 month in advance, so that members of the league can have enough lead time to plan their attendance for the punishment if they would like to. So keep all that in mind, Thomas. We're excited to see what you decide to do in your historic second time getting last place in the league. Um, you're only one behind Sam, so you should maybe pick it up a little bit here, bud. Try a little harder in the postseason. So let's hop over to our other matchups here. Of course, we had our semifinals in Week 15 between our four still in the running for championship games. There was an upset and there was not an upset here. So let's talk about the one that was expected. The gruesome grinders versus the Google team names. Drew taking the cake here, 111.16 to Google team names 99.44. Kyler Murray did everything he could to help this team, but the rest of the team kind of didn't show up as much, especially in the receiving core, where Sam was really leading in the receiving core this year compared to his running back game. But in postseason so far, that has completely switched over. So Jonathan Taylor getting 17.5, Melvin Gordon getting 22.1. That's fantastic. Really good. Really good for Sam and the names there. Wasn't expecting that at all. In the regular season, the running backs scored 18.24% of Sam's total score, and wide receivers scored 39.26% of Sam's total score. But so far in the postseason, in the two games or in the one game that Sam has played, running backs have scored a lot of. Wait, is that right? Hmm. Yeah, no, I was right. Um, Running backs have scored, including the week that Sam didn't get to play. Running backs have scored 83.2 points to the wide receivers 37.3, completely upturning Sam's model on its head. Running backs scoring 42.34% in postseason to the wide receivers 18.98%. that's almost a complete reversal from the regular season. Not one that I was expecting from this team at all. But when you have Amari Cooper only getting 1.3, DK Metcalf getting a little injured and only getting 6.8, and then Juju Smith-Schuster getting just absolutely rocked, only getting 15 yards on his 3 receptions with a fumble. You can't really expect to win off that. Sam finishing sub 100-point performance, and you know that's really tough to see. Sam finishes the season with sub 100-point performances in in 5 of the last 6 weeks of the season. Sam finished under 100 points. That's not great. Not a great end of the season, but Sam was still able to make playoffs. His furthest run into playoffs, but his total playoff postseason record is now 1-13 after his loss to Drew. Tough to see there. Drew now leads Sam 4-1 all time, including 3 wins in the regular season and only 1 loss in the regular season. How'd he do it in this postseason game? Of course, it is Patrick Mahomes and Derrick Henry doing all the work. Pat Mahomes getting 25.86, Derrick Henry getting 24.2. Derrick Henry has been an absolute machine, getting folks to and through the playoffs. Cam Akers did go out with an injury. He's going to miss week 16, won't be able to start against what was going to be a pretty easy matchup against Seattle. So we'll look at the bench and see if David Montgomery or who's going to make the cut between David Montgomery, Kenyon Drake, or Chase Edmonds in that spot. But Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, both getting over 14 points. And then Mike Davis, kind of quiet against Green Bay, surprisingly. So I don't know what that bodes for next week. Derrick Henry against Green Bay. Hopefully it means that Green Bay finally figured out their run defense. That'd be fantastic for anybody, who has to play against Derrick Henry in a championship matchup. So definitely something that, we would love to see have happen here. But Gruesome Grinders, well underperforming their projections, were easily able to get the win over the Google team names and move on to the championship match. Let's talk about the Gluten Freaks versus the Rock Plopstas here. Rock Plopstas being the heavy favorite coming into the matchup, being projected almost 140 points to the Freaks 118 points. And then let's go through the timeline here. What happens? Thursday Night Football, Darren Waller pretty much almost outscores all of the running back, or the 2 running backs, as well as the kicker for the Gluten Freaks. It was looking like it might be over already if everybody else were even to just be able to hit projections with Darren Waller's 25.5 points. But unfortunately for the Rock Plopsers, the rest of the team didn't get the memo. Maybe they were taking it easy. They thought Darren Waller did everything, but Josh Allen came out slinging on Saturday, getting 37.66 points. And then DeAndre Hopkins catching a absolute stunning touchdown pass for 25.5 points, making up for some pretty lackluster performances across the board otherwise, except for Josh Jacobs, 18.9 points. Eckler, Kupp, Cole Kmet, Kareem Hunt, Dan Carlson, all being under 10 points otherwise. So Josh Allen, Josh Jacobs, and Dean really doing their part. Looking at the bench, pretty much every missed opportunity in that flex spot, pretty much anybody else that was active would have scored more than Kareem Hunt. So bad decisions there. Luckily weren't punished, just due to the fact that folks like Devontae Adams were held to a pretty quiet game. Allen Robinson were held to a quiet game. Miles Sanders held to a quiet game. Jason Sanders held to a quiet game. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers getting shocked by the tenacity of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think we all were. And then, of course, Russell Wilson. We'll get into some of the Russell Wilson woes during the Pick'em segment. But yeah, 12.04 point performance from what was going to be a front runner for the MVP in the league from Russell Wilson. Definitely not making the case for him to be the MVP this year. Gluten Freaks move on to the championship game, and the Rock Plopstas go on to the third place championship game next week. As of now, Zach has a 11-6 lead all-time record and 3-0 in the postseason against John. So we'll see how that holds up next year. But it was a good game, John, and we'll definitely catch you next year with your, I'm sure, very good team again, based on the players remaining. So that's all we have for matchup recaps. That's great and all. We're going to get into the matchup previews. We only have 2 games left moving into week 16 here. But before we do that, let's hop on over to the Mahold Minute.
Hey, it's the Mahold Minute on the Rathole, the last one of the year, I presume. I just wanted to really thank 2 people in particular. Well, a few people. We'll thank everybody here. First, I'm going to thank Noel for giving me Derrick Henry and Tyreek Hill, and Josh for giving me David Montgomery. Those trades are really helping me in this playoff push here. I wanted to thank Sam for having a bad team and playing Juju, who scored 1 point when he needed 12. That was a real shame. You really hate to see that happen. I want to also thank John for accepting a trade where I sent him Adams and Aaron Jones, because I wouldn't want Devontae Adams on my team last week, scoring 7 points. So overall, things worked out. I want to say good luck to Zach and the Gluten Freaks this week.
Thanks, Drew. I'm of course looking forward to our matchup. So of course, let's hop on over. We have 2 games left in our matchup preview for Week 16 here. And they are going to be very exciting. Money is on the line in both these games. We have $50 on the line in our third place game, and then $150 and $75 each between first and second. So it's definitely an exciting, very exciting matchup here to be part of in both of these. So let's start with our third place game, and we'll get our preview started now. All right, our matchup preview here between the Rock Plopstas and the Googled team names. You all know I'm a big names fan, but it's going to be a tough matchup for them this week. Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson both have some pretty tough matchups. So let's take a look historically first, of course, between these 2 teams. John currently has a 9-2 record all time against Sam, including 1-0 in the postseason. We know Sam's postseason record, of course, is 1-13 coming into the matchup this week. It's definitely a tough one for Sam in the postseason here. So let's talk about it. Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, 2 excellent quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is the number 5 quarterback on the year, and Kyler Murray is the number 1 quarterback on the year. It is an exciting matchup for these 2, both playing in the Sunday afternoon games. It's gonna be fun. Coming down to the running back positions, we have Nick Chubb and Aaron Jones up against Jonathan Taylor and Melvin Gordon. Nick Chubb is the number 9 running back in standard, and Aaron Jones is number 5. And then Jonathan Taylor is the number 10 running back, and Melvin Gordon is the number 19 running back. Right now, definitely giving the edge over to the Rock Plopses on the running back position, especially given the running back woes in terms of total percentage of the team points for the Google team names this year. So let's take a look down here at the wide receiver category. Devonta Adams is the number 2 wide receiver on the year so far. Allen Robinson is the number 9. DK Metcalf is the number 6 wide receiver. And Amari Cooper is the number 13 wide receiver. So definitely edge to the Rock Plopstas there as well, despite some some tenacity in that wide receiver core. A pretty quiet week definitely gives the edge to the Plopstas this one. Darren Waller is the number 2 tight end on the year. Besides Travis Kelce, really the only reliable tight end this year for anybody. And Evan Ingram, currently starting for the names, is the number 14 tight end on the year so far. Darren Waller has a tougher matchup against Miami defense, which is the number 1 defense for fantasy points in the league so far this year. And then Evan Ingram has a pretty good one-up matchup against Baltimore. So we'll see if those matchups can make any difference there. In the flex position, Miles Sanders is the number 23 running back on the year so far. Remember, he did miss some time. And then Juju Smith-Schuster is number 21 wide receiver on the year. Both of these players were pretty disappointing in the Week 15 matchups. So it's kind of surprising to see both of them getting the start as of right now. Of course, that can change. Miles Sanders having a really good matchup against the Dallas defense. Juju, not as good of a matchup against Indianapolis. We'll see how that goes. And then here's really surprising. Pittsburgh Steelers defense, number 3 defense after a kind of blowout win by the Cincinnati Bengals. But definitely better than the number 31 Las Vegas Raiders defense, who have scored over 10 points 3 times this season only, getting 0 and 2 in the last 2 weeks. Questionable decision by Sam to start the number 31 ranked defense. As Drew said, he thought it was a bit. I did too. We'll see if that holds up coming into the last week here, week 16. But right now, according to Sleeper, and we all know how accurate these win percentages are, John and the Rock Plopsters have an 81% chance to win this game. Let's talk about our championship matchup then, and we'll get into the preview now. All right, folks, our championship match. It's finally week 16, the game that we all are waiting for between the gluten freaks and the gruesome grinders. Historically, these two have been very evenly matched up, but they have actually never met in the postseason prior to this game. So this is new territory for both teams. Currently, their record all time is 2-2. Very exciting matchup for these two as well. So let's take a look at the matchup preview here. Pat Mahomes has a very good matchup against the Atlanta defense. Currently, he's the number 2 quarterback, but Josh Allen is the number 3 quarterback, and he is playing against New England. He has a Monday night game, so it's all going to come down to Josh Allen and seeing if he is going to be able to come back from behind and get the victory here, most likely. Coming back from behind with your quarterback being on Monday night, you can kind of expect that a little bit here. and he's up against New England, who has a pretty good defense against opposing quarterbacks. So we'll see if he's able to do that. Um, Going into the running back positions, we have Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is the number 7 running back on the year, to Derrick Henry being the number 3 running back in PPR formats. Austin Eckler missed a lot of time, and then had, in the 4 weeks he's been back, he has bounced back and forth between over 18 points and less than 10 points. So hopefully he will have a pretty good bounce against a Denver defense that gave up 48 points to the Buffalo Bills last week. Definitely something that we can hope for here. Derrick Henry, great. David Montgomery, he's actually the number 6 running back on the year so far. An excellent trade to get him on the team. He's been over 20 points every week since his bye week in week 11. So the last 4 matchups he has had over 20 points, and he has a pretty good matchup against Jacksonville, his highest projection yet on the year since his bye week. I'm worried about the I'm worried about David Montgomery. Honestly, I think he's going to be a really tough, gritty runner against a Jacksonville defense that's letting up a lot of points. So far, coming up on this point, the gruesome grinders have had all green matchups, and the only green matchup so far has been Austin Eckler for the Gluten Freak. So let's talk about wide receivers then. It's unknown right now if Julio Jones will be able to play. Currently, starting in the wide receiver categories are Cooper Kupp and DeAndre Hopkins for the Freaks versus Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans for the gruesome grinders. Tyreek Hill up against Atlanta, Mike Evans up against Detroit. The bigger question is not going to be how many points they score, but I suppose if they play. There's a question on if they will rest Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill in Kansas City against Atlanta, depending on if they already have the first seed locked up. Seems unlikely. Seems like they will be playing, but it's definitely a possibility. And then Mike Evans, just whether or not he's going to get the targets he needs to be successful. Cooper Kupp had a great matchup, it looked like, up against the Jets in the previous week, and walked away with a 6.4 point performance. He's the number 19 receiver on the year so far, and he has been pretty okay, pretty consistently around 12 points, but he's actually just sort of averaging that much. So we'll have to see if he can have a bounce back week against the Seattle defense that's giving up a lot of points. DeAndre Hopkins has a much tougher matchup against San Francisco, but he is the number 4 receiver for points this year. In my opinion, the best receiver in the league skill wise, but that's, I guess, debatable. Question mark. But Dean obviously coming in and trying his best. Then we have a matchup of the tight ends in Philadelphia here: Zach Ertz versus Dallas Goedert. It's tough because if Mike Gesicki was not injured, he would be definitely starting in place of Zach Ertz right now. But it's hard to tell if he will be making the lineup in Week 16. But Ertz versus Goddard, this is going to be, I think, looking at this matchup, the determining factor of who the better tight end out of Philadelphia is. And they should probably just keep the one moving forward, and not make it difficult for fantasy owners to know who to play. In the category of the flex position, right now we have Kenyon Drake up against David Johnson. Kenyon Drake having a tough matchup against San Francisco, where David Johnson has a good matchup against Cincinnati, or so we think. Remember that Cincinnati did kind of shut down the Pittsburgh offense pretty hard, but Benny Snell was able to get 18 points out of the matchup. So hopefully David Johnson can have a good week. He had a great week last week against a tougher opponent in Indianapolis when he did not get played in my lineup. I'm sorry, best friend. You will definitely be getting the start this week, most likely. And then finally, we have the Washington football team, which has really emerged as a good fantasy starting defense. Only getting 3 points last week, but 25 the week before. this week playing against Carolina, who has had a lot of struggles recently. We'll see how that goes for the Washington football team. And then the Miami Dolphins, the number one defense for fantasy points, is in the lineup up against Las Vegas. Pretty good matchup there for the Dolphins. Right now, Sleeper is giving the Gruesome Grinders a 66% chance of winning. I would say that's maybe a little high. I have better hopes for my team than only a 34% chance. I'll put it at 44 and 56 personally, but we'll listen to Sleeper. We know how accurate they are in their win percentages and go from there. So that's all we have for our final matchup preview of the season. And let's hop on over to our last Pong Stars Pick'em. Welcome, boys, to the final episode of the Pong Stars Pick'em. Man, this is really an exciting, monumental piece of history that we were able to do a Pick'em segment every single week, pretty much, except for the ones where we didn't. Great work. I'm proud of all of us for making it this far into the season and it being actually pretty close standings coming down into the final stretch here. So we got 2 games left in our Pong Stars Pick'em, but we actually have the most points on the board that we've had all year, where we have 8 points on the board, largest for the year so far. So let's start with game number 1, our third place matchup, where we have Sam and the Googled team names versus John and the Rack Plopstas. And John said, I don't think a lot of us expected John to be in this matchup in particular. Sam, I think we might have, but let's get into it, and we will start with Drew Mahold.
Yeah, I've got the Rock Plopstas by about 32 points is my margin of deficit this week because they'll be coming back. They'll be pissed off after an emotional loss. They'll want to end the season on a high note, and they will against an inferior opponent.
And thank you to Drew for reminding me to explain the rules of how we're picking our bonus points this week. We have 4 points available, 2 points per matchup in bonus points of guessing the margin of victory for your team within 5 points. So Drew taking John by 32 points means he is between 37 and 27 point differential between Sam and John, and he will get 2 bonus points for that matchup as well. Since there's only 2 points, we are not locking this week. So then let's talk over to John. John, who you got in your matchup?
I got the Rock Plopstas by 5.01 points.
Okay, very, very.
It's going to be a narrow one.
That is a very narrow victory. And let's hop then over to Noel.
I got the Rock Plopstas. I'm picking it by 19.6. He wins by.
All right. Okay. Sam, who you got?
For the first time all year, I'm going to have to pick against my own squad. I've got the Rock Plopsters by 10.
Is that a hard R? Retry that.
Hard R.
Hard R's are not acceptable.
Yeah, I think you got to retry that one. All right. Doesn't. I am going to go with the Rock Plopstas, although after last week, they might be the Rock Bottom Plopstas, but they are going to be.
Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
Oof. Oof.
Wow. That is a low blow from the commissioner.
Zach just taking shots. Love it.
I got John by 25.8 over the Google team names.
There's $50 on the line in this game.
Yeah, there's
keep that in mind.
Absolutely. John will not be the Rock Bottom Plopstas after this week 16 victory.
Hey, as commissioner, do you have the power to change his name to that? I have to ask.
I might. I'll check. Welcome back.
That was so mean. That was the meanest thing I've ever heard. The meanest pun.
Sorry. That was real good though. Oh man. All right, let's hop over to the other matchup where we have Drew and the Gruesome Grinders versus Zach and the Gluten Frauds. Drew, we'll start with you in our championship matchup.
I'm going to pick my squad, bouncing back after a kind of a mediocre week, putting up enough points. And I've got the Gruesome Grinders over the Gluten Freaks by about 8 points.
All right, John.
I am going to go with the GGs. I think the GGs have shown that they are now the best team in the league, overtaking myself by tribute of Zach beating me. Yeah, rolling with the GGs, 5.01 points, max value. But I do think it's going to be close. Zach's team showed a lot of fight last week, obviously, getting the win and showed a lot of firepower. So should be fun.
All right, Noel, over to you.
Yeah, Drew, way to be original by picking your team to win by 8 points. Just like to point that out. But I'm also going with the Gruesome Grinders by 8.3 points this week.
All right, thanks, Noel. Sam.
I have got Drew and the Gruesome Grinders by 5. If I'm going to lose in the playoffs, I want to lose to the champion. I think Drew and the Gruesome Grinders get it done narrowly over the Rock Flop or the Gluten Freaks. I'm sorry. my teleprompter said Rock Plopsters because they were supposed to be there. I'm sorry I didn't get it changed. That's my bad. A writer is getting fired tonight.
Just rub it. Hi,
I'm
Jeff.
going against the grain. I go back to the armchair experts. I called this exact bracket so far, at least up through the championship side of things, and I'm sticking with it. I'm going Zach and the Gluten Freaks beating Drew and the Gruesome Grinders by 9.7 points. Definitely gonna be a close matchup, but I think that the Gluten Freaks are on an upward trend, while the Gruesome Grinders downward. So good for.
I'd like to remind you that the Gruesome Grinders have not lost since week 7.
And you just cursed yourself. All right, I'm changing my
I would
pick.
like to remind you that the Gluten Freaks have not lost since week 13. So very similar.
Got me on that one.
Yeah, so very, very similar.
Double digits or number 7. I'm going to go with 13 over 7.
The Rock Plopsters have the least amount of losses.
All right. So we got 2 bonus questions.
6-9.
What?
Nice.
Oh, yes.
That's
nice. All right. We got 2 bonus questions, boys, for our last 2 points of the year. First one is combining all 4 scores of the 4 remaining teams in the championship bracket. Will the total points be over or under 480 total points? Drew, we'll start with you.
I've got the under here, largely because I believe the Google team names will, for like the 7th straight week, finish with sub 100 points. And it'll be forcing the other 3 teams to carry a lot of weight. So I got under.
For the record, it is only the 3rd week in a row that the Google team names have done under.
This would be the 4th?
This would be the 4th week, yes.
That's the 2 seed in our league, mind you.
John.
Win early, Drew. You just got to win early and then coast into the playoffs.
Yep, and then not make the championship.
And then just coast and then fall.
Yeah.
All the way.
End up not winning any money.
We made the crucial mistake of getting the bye. We lost our rhythm.
We did. It was
the rest of the
everyone
players,
came out sluggish
in
the second game. It just John,
calling it next year. I will not be the 1 or 2 seed intentionally, and I'm going to make a playoff run because I'll be in rhythm.
I told you last week you wasted all your points the week before.
That's true, John. You did waste a lot of points the week before, over 150. Big tough there for you. But John, are you going over or under 480 total points?
I believe I said over. Yeah, I'm gonna go with over. I feel like my team's going to score like 300 points this week just because it doesn't matter anymore. So
If that's the case, I'll take the
matters.
over.
There's 50 points on the line in your game, so it does matter.
yeah, it's not about the money. It's never been about the money.
Oh, it's always about
That's what they all say.
Yep.
It's not. It's about the trophy. I wanted the damn carrot.
Rip. Big rip.
It's currently collecting dust in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, it's not going to stay there. Thank God.
You're not wrong.
Guarantee it gets out of South Dakota. That is huge.
It will need to quarantine for 2 weeks before it leaves. But other than that,
Noel, you're going over or under 480 points.
Yeah, just looking at the point totals from the past couple weeks, I don't trust Sam's team to get over 100. And I don't think Zach's going to get 120. And so that just, John and Drew, they have the potential to get, they have the potential to bring the point total up, but I'm going to go under 480 for the 4 teams.
All right, Sammer?
I've got the over. I got to bet on something. I got to bet for my team on something, man.
I will take the over. I will take the over as well. I think that 3 of the teams are going to drag up the 4th team. And there's no guarantee that 4th team will be. But we got one last bonus point here. One of my favorite ones we've had so far on the year. Back in between weeks 7 and 8, John Stevens traded for Russell Wilson, trading away Aaron Rodgers, Kenny Golladay, and a 2nd-round pick to Brennan Swan. In those first 7 games, Russell Wilson was averaging 29.55 points. And then from weeks 8 to week 15, Russell Wilson has been averaging 18.055 points. So the question is, will Russell Wilson score more than his average for John's team, which is 18.055? And Drew, we'll start with you.
So I think Noel's leading this, our pick'em, right?
Yes.
I think I'm one back, and as of now, we have the exact same picks.
Hey, it could come down to who gets the points for the matchups.
Mm-hmm.
We picked the same, and at least the championship.
I know,
we both picked 8 points.
Who picks the
margin
point difference? Yeah.
I'm saying you picked myself by 8, and I also picked myself by 8 in the championship.
Well, don't copy me. I put it in there first.
That's why I'm changing my pick to say Russell Wilson scores over.
All right.
The points, whatever the heck the number was.
18.055 against the Rams.
Slaughtered by the Jets.
John, yes or no?
Yeah, over for the same reason, because my team doesn't matter anymore. So he's going to go off for like 40 points against the really good Rams secondary, but they'll probably just not show up now. So, yeah.
Noel.
Yeah, I was tempted to say under because they're playing the Rams.
Okay. Now he's just copying my picks. I'm taking the exact. I dibs on the opposite of what Noel picks.
Okay.
Dibs on the same as what Drew picks.
Wait.
But looking at the matchup in the Rams defense last week, I think the Rams are going to come back with a vengeance, and he is not.
Okay.
He's going to score under.
All right, Sam. Sam.
I've got the over sheerly because he's playing against my team for money. There's no way that he doesn't put up at least 35.
All right, I'm taking the over because I agree. John's team is going to play for keeps. There's money on the line. That's all that matters for this squad. So
it's just a giant troll for John. Over. Just a giant troll of a question. Bonus points for John. Trades for Russ. Average of 18.
Haters going to hate, bro.
Hey, regular season. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Is that money Swan gave you for the trade or what?
Sure.
All right. Right now, our points leader is Noel Tigan at 59. We have a tie between Drew and Sam at 58. Zach is at 57. John's at 49 and Thomas at 46. That is where we are at in points. Yes, Noel.
I would like to change my Russell Wilson to over point total.
It's too late. I already moved on.
Well, I'm changing it to over. So
I already locked it in. Sorry.
that's not true.
It's already in the spreadsheet.
You've got
He
4
hit
days.
save. It's done.
It's already in the
You've
spreadsheet.
you've got 4 days.
It's already in the spreadsheet. I can't change it. All right. So that is where we're at points wise. This is our last one of these. We will.
I'd be up by 3 if Thomas could beat Lucas. What unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Very believable.
I think that I was incorrectly punished this season for not being able to lock my team, who was the best team the whole season.
Sorry, the whole season.
I missed out on bonus points because I couldn't lock the best team the entire season.
Hold on. The whole season?
Who's in the championship?
Wait.
I couldn't lock. No. I'm not saying my team was the best the whole season. I couldn't lock the best team for the whole season.
Ah. What?
I got screwed over. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay.
Tough to see for John there. Definitely feeling like he got screwed there. We'll revisit the rules for next year, but winner
Playing for a lot of cash,
the
so this is
Rocco
important.
Memorial Trophy, and very excited to hand that out as well. So congratulations, boys. We made it to the end. We'll have an interview with the winner next week and talk to you boys later. Right, thanks Pick'em players. That is our last Pong Stars Pick'em of the year. Thank you so much for playing. We are going to have one more episode of season 1 of the Rathole next week before we have our end of season hiatus before we come back with a vengeance next season. Thanks for sticking along with me so far, boys. We will have an interview with our champion, an interview with our third place, hopefully, as well as an interview with the Rocco Memorial Trophy winner next week, as well as our matchup recaps. So definitely stay tuned for next week's recap episode. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you as soon as we possibly can. And yeah, thanks for playing this year, boys, and we'll see you next year. That's all we have for this week on the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten. Thanks for voting.